Just 2 days left of our study on the first 12 chapters of Isaiah, and we have 2 chapters left, so I better get going. I'm going to go through all of Isaiah chapter 11. And while I hate going through this one so quick because it is such a key chapter, it is a chapter showing the restoration of Israel, the restoration of God's people, Old Testament and New Testament people. Verse 1, and there shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch from his roots will bear fruit. Oh, the promise made to David in 2 Samuel chapter 7, that one of his descendants would sit on the throne forever. The tree was cut down, was threatened to be cut down by the Assyrians and would be by the Babylonians, but yet showing that through that stump of the line of David that would seem to be put to an end, a shoot would come forth. Life would come from death. And the branches from this root will bear fruit. That fruit is what God brings for us, the forgiveness and the life, the restored relationship with our God. Verse 2, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and fear of the Lord. The Spirit of the Lord would be upon him. We see this symbolized in his baptism of Jesus, understanding that he, being God, did not receive a special anointing at the baptism, but this baptism represented that God's Spirit was with this one, the true man, true God, Jesus. Verse 3, and his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. He shall not judge by what the eye sees, or decide disputes by what his ears hear. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness will be the belt of his waist, and faithfulness the belt of his loins. Wow. This one who is coming is amazing, isn't it? He shall judge not by what his eyes see, nor his ears hear, but with righteousness. And the judgment that he has is for the poor, to help those who had been on the outside, the ones who had been oppressed by the evil ones. He is going to restore. In other words, those who are meek, those who are humbled, he will exalt. Those who are proud, who trust in themselves and not in the Lord, will be put to shame. With the breath of his lips, it says in verse 4, he will kill the wicked. This is a picture of Jesus and how he came for all people to rescue, to save us. Verse 6, the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the lion and the fattened calf together, and the little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young shall lie down together. The lion shall eat straw like an ox. The nursing child will play over the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the adder's den. They shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain. For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as waters cover the sea. This passage shows that perfect restoration that God has in store, of how God would bring through this one, the shoot from the stump of Jesse, which will bear fruit, will restore creation to how it was before sin entered it. There will be no sin, no effects from that sin, all because of the shoot of the stump of Jesse. And now, verse 10, in that day the root of Jesse, who shall stand as a signal for the peoples, of him shall the nations inquire, and his resting place shall be glorious. in this passage, it talks about the root of Jesse standing as a signal for his people. The nations will seek him out. His resting place, heaven, will be glorious. It will be unlike anything that we can understand. Verse 11, in that day the Lord will extend his hand yet a second time to recover the remnant that remains of his people from Assyria, from Egypt, from Pathros, from Cush, from Elam, from Shinar, from Hamath, and from the coastlands of the sea. He will raise a signal for the nations, and he will assemble the banished of Israel, and gather the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. The jealousy of Ephraim shall depart, and those who harass Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not be jealous of Judah, and Judah shall not harass Ephraim. But they shall swoop down on the shoulder of the Philistines in the west, and together they shall plunder the people of the east. They shall put out their hand against Edom and Moab. The Ammonites shall obey them. And the Lord will utterly destroy the tongue of the sea of Egypt. And he will wave his hand over the river with his scorching breath and strike it into 7 channels. And he will lead people across in sandals. And there will be a highway from Assyria for the remnant that remains of his people, as there was for Israel when they came up from the land of Egypt. This picture is a picture again of the restoration, the jealousy between Israel and Judah that had happened throughout their coexistence of separate nations will be done. The restoration of Israel foreshadows the restoration of all of God's people with the Lord. 14 and 15, as we look at that, he is talking about how good will overcome evil. The nations around were full of wickedness and false gods. And here God is showing that God will conquer them. They will return to the Lord. They will return to the one who has promised them that safe haven, that remnant that will return. This is a promise, as I said, of the time when Christ returns and the hope that he gives to his people Israel in the fulfillment of that promise made to David, the promise made to Abraham, the made through Adam even, that God would restore all things to its perfection. We're going to wrap up tomorrow with chapter 12. It's a shorter chapter, won't be as long as this one. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again tomorrow.